Okay, welcome to the table. This is the final. I feel like it's the final. You feel like it's the final?
I do, because it hurts my feelings studying this.
It's like every week. So this is hopefully the final week that we're going to talk about it.
Jesse. And,
yes, next week.
Yeah, Chris back.
Yeah. So this has been for me, if nothing else. You know, how I view my husband, how I treat my husband, how I serve my husband now is different.
It's made me more aware.
Yep. It's not any easier.
It's not. She's right.
And so, like, even our pastor preached on it.
He did.
And I was, like, turning around in church being like, where you at? Where you at? Like, oh, my gosh. But it's also confirmation because he says the same. I mean, he has said, you know, walking in the Spirit, how we've taught on walking in the Spirit. Everything he talks about is what we're teaching on here. So, for me, that's confirmation that we're doing what the Holy Spirit. And for him to be preaching on it as well.
And the whole time I'm like, ooh, Tommy's here. Yeah, he's talking about it. He's talking about the man being a spiritual leader of the house.
He was telling our men that they needed to go home, and if they had never declared it before, to declare that they are now the spiritual leader of their home. And I just wanted to like hop up and run around the church, you know. Like,
I'm trying not to be one of those girls that's like,
did you hear that? But you know, it's a process now, and so this is where I have to remind myself that when, as I am changing, I have to remind myself that it's not easy, and it's a process. Like you can't just change. Yeah. So you can't expect your husband to hear a sermon and then like be the next spiritual leader of the home and do everything correctly the way that it's supposed to do. Because look at us, we're throwing temper tantrums
right now.
Yeah,
especially on the inside.
So we and Lisa has thrown a tantrum all week. I've had to talk her off the ledge several times. So anyway, but big things are happening, and so that's what you have to look at in your life. I was listening to this guy today, and he was talking about you reap what you sow. So if you sow big things, you'll reap big things. If you sow just a little, your harvest will be just a little. And so, like, that opened my eyes big time, thinking about my marriage. Like, if I really attack this and apply the word, and I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm telling David everything that's going on as well. Like, he was so impressed with the sermon on Sunday that it really spoke to him about leadership of the home. They need to hear it from other men. Yeah. And then you've got big things coming up. You know, you were telling us last week that, you know, was it Wednesday or is it this Wednesday that he's meeting?
Oh, yeah.
That's Wednesday, tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? Like, you're seeing.
I was like, give me a little bit more.
Yeah. I wasn't for sure if you told me on here, but you did. You told me, we talked about it. Because our husbands don't really watch this. So we can like, but I feel like when mine does, because we'll go like, I'm like, this sermon or this episode was great, and I'm like, watch this with me, and
we don't talk about podcasts.
So you know, we don't really worry about if our husbands see it or whatever. But anyway, so Tommy meets with the pastor tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Lee's been after him, which means the Holy Spirit's after Tommy. So it's like, give up, dude. You can run all you want to, but when he pursues you, he's going to get you, you know. And we've all been through it, because I was thinking that I wasn't, you know,
when he invited Tommy, he came over to where we were sitting at church, and he invited him to lunch. And then Lee walks off, and Tommy's like, what did you do?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't do anything.
And you really didn't do anything. It's all been Pastor Lee. And that's how you kind of just know. But I love it. I love when the Lord pursues. Yeah. And but it's because of your faithfulness. That's the thing about it. So that's the whole part of this biblical woman. Like, what is the verse? I think I wrote it down. It's 2 Peter. I mean, it's the verse we hate, where it says that it will be by our conduct.
Yeah, it's 1 1 Peter 3, in the same way you
Yeah,
wives
3
be
said-
submissive
Yes.
to your own husband. That's what I got right here. That's what
through our conduct.
Yeah.
And so
that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to break that down. We have hated this for a year. And if you follow our podcast and you've watched our podcast, you've heard us complain about this verse for the last year, last year. Because the Lord is telling us by our conduct, regardless if he's a believer or not a believer. And so that should tell us that our role is so important in our husbands' lives. And so I gave my husband a massage last night.
What?
Yes. I did. And he's like, where have you been my whole life? Because his hands are always so tired. And, it was a good massage,
Yeah.
And so, and I'm thinking the whole time, like, Lord, there better be some fruit that comes out of this.
I'm doing this for you.
Yes. But it was good. And like, we talked the whole time that we were doing it. And so it was really, really good. I didn't ask for him to massage me back or anything like that. It was just, I just gave him, he loves his hands to be massaged and his arms. And so that's what I did last night. And it was so funny, but yet he was in the best mood. It was like, it relaxed him so much. And he has so much stress on him.
Yeah.
So that's what I did this week.
Good for you. Did you get any hugs?
I did. He is doing so much better with hugs. Yes.
Good.
And so it's just crazy. And then like my menu, I changed it a little bit. So I'm trying to apply some of these things.
You have a menu?
Well, not a menu, but like when I'm ordering groceries.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. So like I want to be thrifty. I want to be, and so I will tell you that the last month, we saved $400. We were able to save that amount of money. And so in Dave Ramsey, it teaches you to pay off a bill. Mm-hmm. Well, we're having a wedding. So the smartest thing for us to do is take that money and apply it toward the wedding. But we would have never saved that money if we wouldn't have had a plan. I mean, you could do so much with the money that we waste if we really tell our money where to go. So, yeah, that's how I know that I'm coming to an end of teaching about being a biblical woman, is because I'm starting to apply it.
Yeah.
And so that's when you know that but it has not been without kicking and screaming.
That's what I was feeling like. I was watching that video. I told you all I wanted to watch that video. There was another video by Wendy Bender, and it was part 3 that I wanted to watch. And I just finally turned it off because I was so sick of watching it.
She told me, that's what she messaged me. She was like, I'm tired of watching this. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
And it is okay for us to like not understand God's plan or be like, oh, my husband is so angry and
stuff. It just feels too hard.
It does. It feels too hard. But that's when he wants you to get to the end of yourself. When you don't have the strength, he gives you his, because it's an emptying of yourself, mm-hmm. to basically give him your vessel and say, okay, Lord, because you don't want yourself to be involved in any of it. You want it to be, here's my body, use my hands, my feet, my mouth.
I did cook all weekend.
I mean, what else? It's only by the power of God that I gave David a massage and you cooked all weekend. I mean, seriously, if y'all don't see fruit, I don't know.
Power of God.
Because listen, that stuff's hard to do. It is, especially when you're mad. You're just like trying to massage him or whatever.
I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah, but I think that you'll start seeing joy. Because just like Pastor Lee was talking about, in the presence of God, there is, you're full of joy. That's in his presence. And so like the more that we are fussing at the Lord and saying, this is crazy. And you're talking back and forth with him because you're being obedient. And that's the most hilarious part about it, is like when you're obedient, you're not happy about being obedient. That's like with Mark Driscoll. I'm going to talk about this. He was at a men's conference. It was this, I guess, off of the Pentecostal, there's like Southern Baptist and there's anyway. So there was a church, and I had never heard of the church or the pastor, But I mean, it was huge. It was so big, and it was called like Strong Men or something like that. And they opened with this pastor probably, in his defense, was looking for manly things. Like when you go to an event, you don't want vendors that are towards women. So they had like a big monster truck there, and so they had this guy that was a swordsman.
Swallower.
Yeah. So anyway, he gets on stage in front of all these men and seductively takes his clothes off and puts the sword all the way down his throat.
Slides down the pole.
Slides up and down the pole. And so, like, we're at a men's conference. And so the controversy of all of it with Mark Driscoll is a lot of people don't like Mark Driscoll, which I do. I like that hard word again. And so, but he had gotten himself into some trouble with Acts 29, and they ended up actually asking him to resign. He did, and I'm sure he went through a season of his life. And so I'm sure that when the Lord told him to call this out during his teaching, he said he had been up all night long. He'd been up praying for the church and for the pastor, because this pastor actually had mentored him through his darkest times of life. So it wasn't like it was just a pastor he didn't know. I mean, this was a friend. He had sat on his couch, and so he called this out, and it was, for me, it was like, how did that get in? But that's Satan. He's a deceiver. And so here all these men and they're all thinking the same thing, like, what are we watching? And I've seen many men's testimony who's been there saying he said what all of us were thinking. And I think it's like we're in a daze. We're in a daze. Like, we're just like, did that really happen on stage? Instead of like, and so when Pastor Mark called it out, I think he has set forward.
The way he did it, though, like he knelt down. I felt like he was trying to humble himself.
Took his hat off, which a lot of people don't like the hat from preaching. But I'm like, the Lord just used him with a hat on, so get over that. Yeah.
But I felt like he was trying to do his best to like get the message across of what he was trying to say.
And then when the pastor told him that's enough, you've gone too far, Pastor Mark just stood up. He received it, because that was the pastor's house. I mean, that was his church. And so Mark got up, didn't say another word. He didn't need to say another word because what took place. So then the men that were at the conference were actually angry at the pastor for kicking him off. And they ended up reconciling, and Mark came back and did, preach. I think they both kind of look at things differently, but I'm gonna go with that public call out, because it was it wasn't like a sin, like he kept hollering Matthew 18 or something like that.
Yeah, you're supposed to go to your brother in private.
Yeah, in private. But that's if he sins against you privately. And so this was a public event there were thousands of men there.
Yeah, this was like a big arena.
Yeah, like,
they had a big monster truck that like jumped.
This was a big conference.
Yeah.
And so I think Pastor Mark Driscoll, he was talking about the Jezebel and the Ahab spirit, which is something that's very foreign to me, because growing up Southern Baptist, you didn't hear of spirits like that. So, and it's not that it is that he taught actually this past Sunday on those spirits and how you can watch and see how they're always together in marriages. And so it was really interesting for something that I have never been taught, because that's not what our church didn't even teach Revelation.
Yeah.
So this is all new and for me to learn. Okay, so what else you got over here about being a good wife?
Well, I had 1 Peter 3, so we just read that.
Yeah, you will learn to hate that verse. Yeah. Because you will hate it because it is hard work. But you will love it when the Lord is faithful and answers your prayers, and you watch everyone.
See the other side of it.
Yes.
So part of the verse says, even if any of them are disobedient. So this maybe mean that your husband's an unbeliever. He might have fallen away from his faith. He might be a new believer, not mature in his faith, or maybe he's questioning his faith. And so this is, for a wife, a hard place to be, especially when you're in your faith and you're growing and you're learning, to have an unbelieving or a different
very
level.
hard.
Your spouse is on a different level than you are.
Because when you both are on, and you'll see this with Jesse and Chris next week, when you both are on equal playing grounds, your marriages just are automatically different.
Yeah. I mean, you're starting to feel that.
Yep. And it's when they start, but they go kicking and screaming just like we go kicking and screaming. So you have to understand that this is a process. The very first thing that I recommend that you do as a wife is to take care of yourself. So, self-evaluation, and we've talked about that, and looking at what God's Word says about how you live your life, the things that you choose to watch and listen to and allow in your home. I mean, that is all on you. And so when you get kind of like, I don't want to say rules, because I really don't have rules, but when you kind of realize what type of woman you are, as far as like, are you one that is a free spirit who's going to need some help with budgeting, or, but I need a budget. I just do, because I'm a giver and I love to spend money and to help people. And so I need to be reeled in a little bit.
One of the things that she also said is, we have to accept the authority of our husbands, regardless of any of those things, of where they're at in their faith. She said that's period.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, it's not that if your husband goes with a bad idea, like if he's horrible at finances and decision making, that's not saying follow him into the ditch.
Right.
That means you
do your best to influence.
Yeah, you're that influencer. You're that one, like Abigail ran out to David and explained and you're teaching, but with love and gentleness, because you don't want to overstep, but yet what's best in maybe an area that he's weak in.
Yeah, and then if we're not good at accepting the authority of our husband, God's supposed to have authority over us, so that probably means we have a problem with God's authority over us.
And your submission to your husband. And so, like, if your husband doesn't know how to lead, let's just say, because a lot of men don't know how to lead, I will tell you that I have said these things to David for so long, most of our marriage, and but he didn't grow up with a father who led, and so it's like that's your generational curse. That's how that falls down, is that's why it's your responsibility to stop whatever wasn't taught to you or whatever wasn't done to you, and it's your responsibility so your children grow up differently. So you have to be the curse breaker. You have to, when you realize that it's your responsibility, everything should stop with you.
Yeah.
And that's a big responsibility, but it's a great honor too, because it says that if you hear what God says about a woman, regardless if you're a wife now or you're not a wife now, you're a treasure to be had. And so men don't realize that. Men don't understand that. And so that's why it's important for us women to pray for these men and pray for other women. Like for me, prayer's been heavy on me. I feel like once or twice a month, I just need to say, hey, I'm going to be at the courthouse on this date. Anybody want to come and pray for our community and our men and our children? We'll do it for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's like, if no one shows up, then I'll sit there and pray by myself. But I feel like there has to be an intentional prayers poured out for our schools and our children and our community. That's where I think our biggest job is right now, is prayer. Prayer that your husband's heart is softened so the Lord can show him change. But you have to be the one who has to soften his heart, because you can't go in there and like a wrecking ball and then expect the Lord to be able to do any type of work on his heart.
The other part to this is, regardless, they'll be the ones that have to answer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big part on each. And so you tell your husbands who they are supposed to be, because they've probably never been told.
Yeah.
I've never been told this stuff. I mean, I've went a little bit into some of this stuff, but like most people don't know how to submit. They don't. And nobody wants to say, hey, we're supposed to be staying home, because that's so far out of the possibility, unless you want to starve or not pay your rent or whatever, it's almost impossible. And so but we can't just be like, oh, we can't do anything. We have to learn to do the best we can and thank Jesus for the rest. But I mean, still, obedience is going to bring fruit to your family.
Yeah.
you
And I
know.
don't think there's enough credit in learning about our influence and how special of a gift that is that God's given us. I don't think we give enough credit to that gift.
Yep.
You don't realize the influence you have over your family and over your husbands, even though they are the head and they'll have to answer for all that.
And it makes perfect sense. I mean, Satan is a genius. The two most powerful people, if you can keep them divided on everything in the home, because there's nothing more powerful than a husband and a wife when you become one. And then if you submit to the Lord. So that's his whole thing, is to keep you divided. And so, like, enough's enough. If you truly want your marriage to work and you want a divine marriage, I don't know who is married who doesn't want their marriage to be better. I mean, that seems to be number one on my prayer list. And you start to slowly watch your husband grow. But you have to grow first in order to be able to extend patience and grace to your husband and stop the nagging. Because if you don't, you are messing up what the Holy Spirit's trying to do in your husband, because you're nagging, and that's causing his spirit to be messed up. And that's not like, right now all the gardeners should be, getting their fields ready, because you're getting ready to sow some seeds. And that's the same way with our husbands, or even anybody that you're trying to reach. You've got to prepare that field. You've got to build that person up. You've got to make sure they're healthy and thinking, and then the Lord, he will handle it. But it's a long process. It's a long wait, and we get aggravated.
One of the points that she made is, like, you have to look at this loving your husband as an opportunity to love God. And you're supposed to love God first. And so if you're in a place of doubting your marriage, or you feel like you can't go on in your marriage, like, love God first. And the more you fall in love with God, the more you'll fall in love with your husband.
I mean, let's be honest. Our marriages both were rock bottom. I mean, it's not like we're just two church girls who've had an okay marriage our whole life. I mean,
and rocky. And I think that goes for a lot of people out there. Like,
but
you get married and you feel like, you think everybody posts all the good things on Facebook.
Vacation, you see vacation, everybody's
all
happy on vacation.
The happy lives and stuff. It's not like that in the everyday life. Me and Brittany were talking about it earlier. It's like, she's like, I'm just going to stay single. It's, and I was like, good. It's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. But I do believe that there's somebody out there for everybody. I really do. And I think that sometimes we look in the wrong places. And if
devote yourself to the Lord.
Yes, but know what you're looking for in a man. I mean, no one taught me what to look for in a man. I should have had some guidelines. I should have had some
standards.
But would I have accepted it? I don't know.
And those standards wouldn't be what your standards would be today.
But I think that's what you teach your child the whole time, like growing up. Like who like the whole fact that dads don't have more of a role in who their children marry blow my mind. Because if you don't even, a lot of people are like, oh, because there were several people we didn't let our kids date. I mean, if you didn't have, if you got in any trouble or weren't mentally healthy or whatever, you didn't date my girls. I don't care. And people were like, well, you just think you're better. No, that's my treasure, and so it's important.
Well, and I think that helps your girls to realize the special influence that they're gifted with, and to hold that until it's somebody that's worthy.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know if you guys learned anything or not, but I mean, this was hard on us.
Yeah.
It's still going to be hard, but it has taught me a lot, and we'll probably come back around. And I can't wait for you all to meet Jesse and Chris. You've already met Jesse, but they're just really a unique couple. And there's another couple in our church, Holly and Mike, and they've been married 30 years, and you would think that they just got married. I mean, they like hug on each other and hold each other's hands, and they're praying together over communion. They're in our Sunday school class. And I might invite them on, because that's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to see that somebody's got something special, and we're supposed to see, hopefully, that it is a divine marriage. And so anyway, so look for weird things that you've done that, I mean, I gave a massage and you cooked all weekend. I mean, that is like fruit.
Abby was gone all weekend, and she came home last night, and we were sitting in her room talking to her, and was telling her what I fixed and stuff. She was like, "You wait until I'm gone to cook?"
Yeah. But that's something that we're supposed to do. And so it is important to try to cook more at home, because what we're eating, it's for convenience. And so, like, I feel like us women have got to understand that going to McDonald's all the time and feeding your kids is not the healthiest thing for it. So we have to be wise and not be foolish. And not saying that you can't do that, but
we don't even know what their meat has in it
I
now.
know it, yeah. I've heard some crazy things. So anyway, all right. So ladies, good luck. You're gonna need it, but I'm just trying to be real. Yeah. Put your armor on. Satan's gonna attack you, but just keep a journal. I think this has helped me just by teaching it. I can keep little things down that remind me, but like, you'll start to see your husband soften, and you'll start to see blessings of your marriage. But I'm thankful that we're moving on. So I don't know what our next topic will be yet. We'll kind of get through these next testimonies and kind of go from there. So, But yeah, this is when you dig your toes in and you stand and you be obedient and you walk in the Spirit, so you don't carry the desires out of the flesh, like
even
to
if you
smack
don't
your
like
husband.
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to cook, or you don't want to give a massage, or you don't want to give a compliment, be obedient to what the Lord has called you to do. So you got a big shoes to fill, I think. I'm like, golly. 1 Peter, what was it? 3? Go look it up. You will have a love-hate relationship with it. So, all right, we'll see you next week.